Hey everyone, it's Denise Brown from Caring Our Way, and this is Caregiver Support Live. We gather once a month to answer your questions about your caregiving challenges. And my co-host is Jennifer Richey. Jennifer, hello.
Hi there. How are
Jennifer,
you?
good, good. Jennifer is one of our certified caregiving consultants, facilitators, and educators, and she coaches family caregivers.
Yes.
Okay, let's start. These are very straightforward questions. I actually don't even have to refer to my notes for the first question because the first question is, why do we need a family emergency plan?
Yes.
Okay, so why do we need a family emergency plan? From your perspective, what's your answer, Jennifer?
Well, I have a short answer and a long answer.
Okay, great.
My short answer is to stop the worry. Um, and to expand on that a little bit too. Um, you know, this is for caregiving, but it's for life. It can be anything. You don't have to be a caregiver to need one of these. And when crisis happens, when um, tragedy sometimes happens, it is a very emotional time and high stress. And when we are in that state, it is very hard to make decisions. It's already, we already are often in that decision fatigue when we're caregiving. So, it's really nice to just have a plan written out that we can just refer to, like, oh, I'm calling that person for this person's going to do this. And then the decisions are already made. You don't have to worry about it. It makes it so much easier. You know that things are taken care of, and it allows you to kind of work out some difficult situations before they actually happen, so that you don't have to. It doesn't keep you up at night.
Yes, we have been doing free monthly family emergency planning sessions for years. And we do it for free every month because we are so committed to having everyone create a family emergency plan. Just as you said, Jennifer, everyone can use a family emergency plan. There were a couple things that happened recently, just terrible tragedies that really made me think, okay, we have to talk about this again. So it's actually my question. It's my
Mhm.
question. For instance, in Massachusetts, there was a terrible fire at assisted living facility, and residents died. And when we
Mhm.
think about family emergencies, we might not necessarily think through what are the emergencies. So, for instance, if your caree is living in a senior community, it's helpful to know what's that community's plan in case of an emergency.
Mhm.
Emergencies can be a fire, a flood, a blizzard, a tornado, a hurricane. In particular, in our current state of the world,
Mhm.
climate change has caused very erratic, strong weather changes. And it's important for us to be prepared. And when I think about having a family member in a facility, for instance, if you understand what their emergency plan is, it can help you then create yours. For instance, these residents who survived this terrible fire in Massachusetts now have to figure out where are they going to live.
Mm.
And if something happened, and we hope this never happens, we never want it to happen. If it does, though, you'd want to have a plan for where your carry could reside. It could be
Yes.
short term, it could be another type of long term placement. You just want to be ready. Because, as you said, Jennifer, in the moment of crisis, it is so difficult to think clearly. And
Mhm.
oftentimes, we're experiencing a crisis that is also traumatic.
Mhm.
So it's a double whammy. And
Yeah.
that's why it can be really difficult for us to think through, well, what do we do? And how do we do this? And when do we do this? It's just helpful to think through so that you have the options.
I was trying to think about when, if there was a situation when I was caregiving that I was worried about. And the one that comes to mind still is what happens when my mom becomes immobile. Because I couldn't move her on my own, and that affects her activities of daily living, her hygiene, her everything. And so I was really worried about that because we had committed to not having her in a facility. And so we talked to the hospice team, and they said, we'll bring in a bed, we'll have help. And so it eased my mind. It certainly didn't, I couldn't put it out of my mind, but it definitely kept me from worrying all the time about it. So that was really helpful. So things like that too, not like it doesn't have to be tragedy. It can just be a change in care need.
Right, which can feel like an emergency.
Yes.
I can't get mom out of bed.
Yeah.
And maybe the day before everything was fine, but
Mm.
this day is the day everything changes.
Yeah.
And it's really awful to feel like, and I don't know what to do.
Mhm.
And I think it's interesting too when you talk about, so you went to your hospice team for ideas. I think that's one of the reasons to think about palliative care as soon as you can, because that helps with different transitions, including to hospice, but
Mhm.
also around transitions that relate to a decline. And that can be a transition to a wheelchair, a
Mhm.
transition to more of a hospital bed. Those are tough transitions. And that's bringing in equipment and supplies that are different that you have to somehow fit in the house,
Mhm.
whose ever house it is. And those are tough. And those are helpful conversations to have with your Carrie's community if your Carrie is living in a facility. What do we
Mhm.
do when
Yeah.
there's a mobility issue? How do we manage that? What happens next?
Because many places that people will live are like if they're in assisted living, they don't typically deal with people that need more intensive care. You often have to move to a different place where the care level is higher. And so that's important to know when you're choosing a place where you're putting your relatives. So yeah.
And I suppose we should save this for another episode. We can talk a little more specifically around decisions
Hmm.
when you're looking for a facility. But the thing that's really important that adds to what you just said is if you choose an assisted living facility that does not accept Medicaid, for instance, and Medicaid would be the program that takes over if your carry runs out of money, your carry has to move. And I think people kind of think, oh, we won't have to worry about that. And then when you have to worry about it, the options are very limited about where you can move your carry. That's very upsetting. And I think that is going to be another catastrophe that we
Hmm.
are on the cusp of.
Yeah.
We can talk about that for another episode, but it's so important to know what would
Hmm.
be a trigger for a move.
Yeah.
And if it's money, money buys you better facilities.
Hmm.
So if it's lack of money, know that your choices are going to be limited and not necessarily the best kind of choices.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I think you're right about with just the political environment going on, we don't know what's going to happen with Medicaid and all of that. So it definitely is something to keep an eye out for.
Yes, absolutely.
Decisions, yeah.
And I also think we can be ready with a plan if somehow our day and our schedule gets disrupted. Now, I
Mhm.
suppose in the outside of caregiving world, we wouldn't think of that an emergency, but in the caregiving world, if your schedule gets disrupted, that can be an emergency. And rather than just spinning your wheels or feeling like you're twirling like a top, if you have a plan for a disruption, you can
Mhm.
implement the plan.
Yeah. And I just want to add before we move on, if you're listening to this and thinking you don't, this isn't, I'm not a caregiver, or I'm no longer a caregiver,
Yeah.
you don't need this. Think about if you have a child in school. What if there's a fire? What if there's an earthquake? Or what if there's an active shooter? Like these
Oh,
things are,
yes.
top of mind for parents. And you have a plan. They make you have an emergency contact. Just an emergency contact is having a plan, you know?
Yes.
Um, so just as simple as that kind of thing. I mean, everybody needs it for something. So yeah,
And we all have to be prepared for a flooding incident in our community.
yeah,
It's not isolated to certain communities that are by water. It's all of us have to be prepared with a plan for flooding.
yeah.
That is the state of our world right now.
Mhm.
And as a reminder, you can join us for these free planning sessions to help you create your emergency plan on the fourth Friday of every month at noon Eastern Time. You can join us as often as you want. I had someone join last month and we really were starting to do some great work. And she was like, I have to get back to work. I said,
Mhm.
come back next month. It's free.
Yeah.
We'll continue the conversation. So you're welcome to join us for free every month as
Mhm.
often as you'd like. And our certified caregiving consultants are also available if you'd like to hire one to do more private and personalized planning, because we include that in our certified caregiving consultant training. Everyone is trained to help a family member develop a family emergency plan. That is how
Yeah.
that's how committed we are to this.
And it's not a one and done kind of thing. You know, you want to look at it periodically just to make sure it's up to date. You may want to change the contacts or change the plan or, so it is good to revisit it too.
Yes, I think of it as at least annually, just
Yeah,
to look to see.
for sure.
Okay, let's go to the next question, which might take us a little bit longer to get through. What do
Mhm.
I need to tell my manager about my caregiving situation?
Yeah, the first thing I thought of with this was like benefits and leave based. There is something, it depends on where you're working, but there's something called intermittent family leave where you may not need a 60-day leave. You might just need a couple hours every week. And so you could talk to them about that. And that might be better discussed with human resources as well. But I think, depending on your relationship with your manager too, just being real honest about what the toll that this is taking, how your responsibilities may need to change if that's the case. And maybe nothing needs to change right now. And you're just, I feel like the more warning we can give people about what might happen, the better. And unfortunately, not all managers are super understanding about this. So you also may need to kind of be careful what you say too. And I think Denise, you can talk about that. But yeah, this is a tough one because it's different depending on where you work.
Okay, you just sparked a reminder for me. Years ago, I was doing a podcast with an author. Her name is Callie Williams Yost. And she was one of the very first individuals in the workplace to really consult with workplaces around flexible scheduling. She really felt like that was a need, and she
Mhm.
would go into organizations and help them create that. And she was doing this 15 years ago.
Oh,
We were doing a podcast and we were talking about this very question. And one of the suggestions she gave was before you talk to a manager, talk to an ally.
mm,
And an ally in the workplace could be someone on your team, someone that you just know who has expressed their own caregiving situation, the details of their own caregiving situations. Start with that ally and ask, what did you tell your manager and when?
yeah,
And
that's
that
good.
can be helpful. It's helpful if your ally shares the same manager as you. However, you'll have insights into your manager's makeup to know how to personalize
Mhm.
what your ally suggests to your situation.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're doing a little bit of research to get the lay of the land.
Mhm.
And you can also start to do your own research around benefits. So you might not feel comfortable talking to HR, but you could at least look on your organization's intranet and look
Mhm.
at benefits and
Yeah.
see what's appropriate for taking a paid leave. When is a family medical leave more appropriate? The other thing you want to search for is what state specific policies might be available to you. So some states do require organizations to provide paid leave.
Mhm.
And in Illinois, the city of Chicago has different policies than the rest of the state. So if you're an organization in the city of Chicago, you have very specific policies around what you must offer your employees. So you could even get specific to your county or your town or city. So
Oh,
start doing a little research. And then, the other part of this, I guess, actually relates to the emergency plan, thinking about what is an emergency that could interrupt your work? And
mhm.
then thinking through what it is, and then starting to build out a plan. And then that might be the time to talk to your manager and say, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. We've got plans in place, so she's receiving the care and support she needs.
Mhm.
I'm worried about something changing though, and I might have to help her more. So I've done some research and I found these options are available to me. What would be helpful for you as I continue to help my mom? What would you like to know? When would you like to know it? What suggestions would you have about benefits that I could use?
I love that approach because as someone who has been a manager of many employees, I never wanted to lose someone, especially over a caregiving situation. But I also couldn't be the one to fix it. I can offer them things, but sometimes employees would come in and be like, "This is my problem, now what?" And they've done no research. They've done, and it was like they're handing it to me to take off their plate. And, certainly there are things I could do, but I can't fix it. So, going with as much information, as much research as possible beforehand is great. And as someone who dealt with this a lot, I would rather have someone who needs to take a day off a week or a couple hours off than lose them completely. I mean, financially, it doesn't make sense. And you care about your employees, you want to be able to see them support themselves still while doing this. There's so many options now with remote work. And, we saw through COVID, many things we thought that could not be remote became remote. And so it can be done. Not always, but, it's certainly worth asking.
And the research that's part of the ask is going to be so important. In
Mhm.
essence, what you're thinking through is I am presenting my manager with a problem that I have.
Mhm.
I am going to also offer solutions. And it could be that you say, I'm wondering about this solution, if this would work. And if the manager says, absolutely not, okay. I have been thinking about what else could work. What about this solution?
Mhm.
It's very helpful if you position it as I'm just giving you an update about my life and I have researched solutions and I'd love to talk to you about what solution would be most appropriate.
Mhm.
You can even say, I appreciate that our goal here at work is to meet the deadlines, serve our clients, deliver excellence in terms of customer service. Or you could just repeat whatever your company's mission statement is. That would be
Mhm.
awesome. I
Yeah.
appreciate that's our goal. And I'm committed to that too. And I have this family situation. I'm doing my best to manage it. Sometimes, though, it is unpredictable. I'm worried about what happens when the unpredictable happens. And here's what I've been thinking about. How do you feel about this? Okay, you know what else? I'm going to pitch something else. We can help teams create family emergency plans in case someone on the team has to step away short term to manage
Mm.
a caregiving experience or situation or crisis.
Yeah.
And the reality is that is going to be part of the workplace.
Well, and I was also thinking when I first saw this about our attempts in the past to really your attempts in the past to create a caregiving support department within
Yes.
organizations,
Yes.
which we're not quite there yet, but I'm not, I'm very confident that that's still an option down the road, I think.
Yes, because I think that could be a huge asset to an organization. It's
Mm,
not part of HR, it's its own separate department. An employee with a personal caregiving experience is tapped to lead it. They go through our certified caregiving consultant training, and they're available as a resource to help employees. Then it could also be a revenue generator for the organization because it could be that there are support systems built in that are free to the employee. And then when the employee wants more, they pay for more. For
mhm,
instance, maybe once a month, they could join a free family emergency planning session. And then if they want personalized support, they pay that employee who is running that department to meet with
mhm.
them.
Yeah, it's a
So
pretty great solution.
yeah, it doesn't have to be a cost center. It could be a break-in even center
Mhm.
that actually helps employees stay employed
Yeah.
and the business continue.
Mhm. Yeah.
If you are in a situation where you're thinking about, what do I tell my manager? You are welcome to share a question with us or join us live and talk it out with us. We'd love to help and support you.
Yeah, because there are very unique situations that we may not have thought of,
Right. And
certainly help.
every manager is different. Like, for
Mhm.
instance, I would love it if you were my manager, Jennifer, because you're kind and compassionate and you're practical and logical. Unfortunately, there are some managers that just might be, oh my gosh, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to
Yeah.
deal with this. You know,
And they've never dealt with it. So
right.
they,
Yeah, I
you
have
know,
no idea. Right.
yeah.
Timing is everything too. So paying attention to your boss's demeanor
Hmm.
and really knowing intuitively based
Yeah.
on their demeanor when is a good day and when isn't.
Yeah. Like, let's not do this right around, crunch time for the budget or
Yes.
billing or, let's
Or
do
the
it during a week that's kind of chill.
yes, right. Or right before he goes on vacation or she goes on vacation.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. So pay attention to the timing.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. We have time for one last question. And that is, my sister totally went MIA. She was gone while I cared for our parents. She's reaching out to me now and seems to want a relationship. We rarely connected before my parents died. Do I re-engage with her?
Yeah, this is a tough one for me in particular because I'm an only child. So I haven't had this experience and, you know, those dynamics. But my first thought with this was, what's the motive?
Oh, I know. We always think, okay, like, is there an inheritance that might be
Yeah, yeah.
part of the reason for the motivation?
Or is it truly like, I regret not being there. I want to try and make it right, you know? So I think we would need to know that. You would need to know that. Have a conversation about that, you know? It doesn't have to be a yes or no from the beginning. It can just be a let's explore this. So I don't know. What about you?
I think something happens too when you realize that death is final. Let's face
Mhm.
it, a lot of us are in denial about the finality of death. And
Yeah,
then when it happens, you think, I don't get that time back, do I? I don't get more time.
yeah,
And maybe that has happened with the sister, where she recognizes that the family has shifted. It's different now without parents. And you also start to look at like who's left in my life that understands all that's happened in my life. And that's the shared history that often siblings have.
Yeah.
I think it's helpful to know that you have a choice about how you move forward. Moving forward could just be that you get together for one holiday once a year and you
Mm.
try that and see what happens.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be full in, best friends. Let's do this. You can really be strategic in terms of what it feels like step by step by step. So I guess it's really around exploring what that feels like and looks like that works for you. And
Yeah.
and definitely a conversation could be,
Hmm.
this is interesting that you're reaching out to me. What
What's
has
changed?
motivated? Yeah, oh, that's better. What's
Yeah.
changed for you that
I think what you said about, life without your parents, there is something about that. Obviously, death of anyone in our life is hard, but I know when I lost both of my parents, I remember my mom saying when she lost her dad after her mom had been gone for years, and she said, I feel like an orphan. And I was like, okay, mom, you're 60, you know? And I had the exact feeling when my mom died. Like, I- and especially not having siblings. So it was very like, who do I have left? So I can see how that would change because the parents are often the glue. And when the glue's gone, you got to create new glue.
yes, you have to create new glue. And it is terrible that a sibling didn't step up to help. It's terrible. And we can't know what's in the sibling's head and heart, and we can't know whether or not they're experiencing regrets. And some people just don't know how.
Hmm.
I was going to whisper this, but my sister isn't here as I'm whispering this. So I think I could say it out loud. So I have two sisters. One removed herself, didn't help at all. And the other one, boy, I really had to be aware of how little she could cope with anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I did my best. It didn't make sense to me. It makes much more sense to me now, but it didn't make sense to me during. I was like, what is wrong? Like, why are you getting so upset? Where's the coping here? She just could not cope. And what's interesting is she changes the story post caregiving to make it seem like she was really fully present, always there to pitch in, ready to help. And sometimes that makes me crazy. And I have been really working on letting it go
Mm. Yeah.
because what's the point?
Yeah.
So I guess in a situation like this where the sibling who wasn't involved now wants a relationship, I'm not sure it's helpful to revisit, well, why didn't you help me when I needed help? That
Mhm.
is the hardest part about this.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll ever receive an answer that satisfies you because I'm
Yeah.
not sure that as humans we can really completely bare our soul and say, I totally blew this. I am a terrible person that I didn't help. Not sure that we all have that capacity.
Hmm.
Maybe some do. I shouldn't say it as a blanket statement. However, I think if you decide to move forward with the relationship, there is a part of letting go, like the answer to your why, that might be helpful.
Yeah.
She just couldn't, so she didn't, is oftentimes the answer. And we might feel better thinking about being in a place of judgment around that. And yet it's it's better for us, I think, if we let go of believing we can be in that position of judging.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think the coping and the ability to be present in those caregiving situations can change too. Like, I think sometimes we can be really strong in one situation, and maybe another situation it's just too much, or your life has changed circumstances of your life has changed. I know I felt much stronger when I was younger, when my dad was sick, handling it all. When my mom was sick, it was like, okay, there's way too much going on. It was much more um, emotional about the whole thing, and it surprised me too, you know. So I think there's something to be said for that.
Okay, we got through 3 questions.
Yeah, we did. I think that's a first.
Yes, that is a first. Okay, Jennifer, for our viewers and listeners who'd like to be in touch with you, what's your website address?
It's jenniferrichey.com. Yeah.
And I'll put a link to Jennifer's website in our show notes as well. And I'll also remind our viewers and listeners that you can send us a question. We'd love to help you. And you can email questions@caringourway.com. We post the archive of our live conversation on our YouTube channel and in our community, caringourway.com. And again, we go live once a month, so you're welcome to join us live and add your thoughts and ideas and suggestions and insights. We'd be grateful for your wisdom.
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. Thanks, Jennifer. Always great to share this time with you.
Absolutely. You too.
Thanks, everybody, so much for all you do and for watching and listening. Be sure to join us on our community, caringourway.com, to receive more support from us. Thanks much. Bye-bye.